Before we go there, we will invite to the stage Lieutenant Commander CV Prakash. He is a former officer of Indian Navy, retired Lieutenant Commander CV Prakash. Upon his retirement, he migrated to Australia in 2011, and he is working on something which is called hydroponics. He has fondly created a project called Paid Bharo Project, and I would like to invite Sir CV Prakash onto the stage to tell us more about his Paid Bharo project. Thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's such an honor for me to be here to speak on my pet subject, which is soil-less cultivation or hydroponics, as generally people know. This is the first time I've ever entered the portals of an IT company. I only imagined what it looks like. The last time I saw an environment like this was on Facebook when somebody said, Google has something in Gurgaon, and this is how people work. So it looked like people had come home to work. And people were sitting on a cot and working and listening to music, and it looked like they were not in an office. But it's very interesting that, how things are changing, and people realize that to do efficient work or productive work, you obviously have to have certain conditions. I'm indeed very happy that I'm here today speaking to an information technology crowd. And you're from IT and I'm from AT, Agriculture Technology. And before that, my background, as he announced just now, is I was in the submarines and I was a specialist on weapons and sonars, and all I knew was how to fire torpedoes and pick up enemy submarines and ships at sea. It's been a long journey for me, 16 years now in this field. I moved from India to Australia. I migrated, and I was not too sure whether they'll give me torpedoes to fire in Australia because there are no jobs for torpedo officers. So you keep wondering what to do after you retire from the armed forces normally. And I happened to see something very interesting, like what we call a soil-less cultivation in Melbourne, in Victoria. And it was like falling in love with a girl. If someone asked you, how did you fall in love with this girl, you have no answer. You just fell in love. So I fell in love with this subject the same way. So when people ask me why, how, I have no answers. Anyway, it's interesting that we are celebrating the World Earth Day. And I have always been a very ardent supporter of the environment. And before I even start telling about hydroponics, I would like Dell to make a visit to Dharwar. We have a lot of lakes out there as well. And I can get you some volunteers locally. We have some beautiful lakes that are really dying. And I'm sure if you could take up one more lake there, I'll be there to help. In fact, on the mid of May, this May, we are doing a complete Swachh Bharat campaign, starting with our street, which is about 200 meters. We're going to clean up our street, and we're going to teach people how to do vermicomposting and things like that. So it's going to be really interesting. And I can see that more and more of us Indians, we are getting more aware of our environment. We really started to wonder what's happening, and we want to take action, which is really good. The Swachh Bharat campaign is also, of course, it'll take time, but still people have started understanding the importance of keeping the environment clean. Well, so in the last 16 years, I spent 8 years in Australia learning how to grow plants without the use of soil. And the interesting thing is, everybody asks, why should you grow plants when there's so much of soil around? It's not that. It's basically that the soils have so depleted in nutrition, or they are so full of fertilizer, and they have so much of pesticides in it. And any soil you take anywhere in the world today, especially in India, you take soil for a lab test, and you find the soils have all kinds of microorganisms which are just not helpful for plant growth. We are unable to take plants to their genetic or God-given potential. We have, say for example, a variety called Priya, a tomato variety called Priya. Priya is supposed to give you 10 kg of tomato, provided it's got all the ideal conditions. But unfortunately, Priya can't give you 10 kgs per plant. It just gives you about 1 to 1.5 kg per plant. The reason is because you're unable to give ideal conditions to the plant. There was a time and age, and I mean maybe 100 years ago, when everything was still fine. There was no global warming. Man had not yet started to plunder the earth like the way we do today. And plants really grew to their genetic potential. But today that possibility is really not there, and we've actually reached that threshold of getting good yields and quality and stuff like that. So there had to be some way that we could mitigate this problem. Many years back, about 70 years ago, or a little more than that, Dr. William Garrick, a gentleman, a very famous scientist in America, he started to work on soilless cultivation, and he did succeed, and he gave this name called hydroponics. Hydroponics is basically two words. Hydro is water in Latin, and ponos in Greek means working in water or water working. I'm sure all of you have already seen hydroponics naturally in the lakes. You've seen lotus grow, you've seen hyacinth. These all grow naturally by hydroponics. They pick up the nutrients from the water. So hydroponics is not something that man has invented. It is just that, like Newton noticed and asked why the apple is falling on his head, and we found the law of gravity. Gravity was always there. People had coconuts fall on their head, but no one asked why. So it is just that somebody noticed, and they gave a semblance of a science to this whole thing. And it's one of the most detailed work ever done in the field of horticulture, where we really understand what a plant needs. How many of us actually know what happens below the surface of a plant? Very few of us know what's happening at the root zone. Actually speaking, what is happening at the root zone of the plant is deciding what is happening at the shoot zone of the plant. So it's a big subject, and I do keep training people off and on, about 2 or 3 programs every month. And soilless cultivation is picking up. It's just new to India, but it's something that is happening in many parts of the world. The most beautiful thing to know is, just because we give the right environment, the right nutrition to the plants, we get the best quality of produce. Like when you see a tomato in the market today, you see it's red, and you say, wow. But actually, if you think about it, it does not have all the nutritional value that it must have. It's just got that color and the look, and we get excited and buy it. In hydroponics, what happens is we use all the micro and macronutrients as much as the plants need, and we feed them exactly as per the need. So when it's a small little baby, you cannot give a small baby cow milk, buffalo milk. You can only give cow milk. After cow milk, you give buffalo milk, and then slowly you give food that the child's stomach can digest. In the same way, we look after our plants like babies. You can have all the science behind you and all the knowledge, but if you don't have the connection with the plant, they just won't grow. So it's all about having that connection like a mother and a child, and that's what makes plants grow extremely well. Okay, now today if you look at it, rapid urbanization is one of the causes of cities not able to handle the number of people walking into the cities. It's actually, Food and Agricultural Organization says 1.5 million people in the world are moving into cities every day, whatever the cities may be. 1.5 million multiplied by 365. They say by the year 2050, 85% of the world's population will be living in cities. How are we going to feed these people? And if everybody walks into the city, who's going to grow food in the rural areas? I travel the length and breadth of this country, and I can actually see in most of the rural areas today, the farmers are generally people above 60 years old. And where are the youngsters? They're all in Bangalore. Their children are all in Bangalore. They're doing other jobs other than farming. So a stage is coming when there's going to be a shortage of food for sure, because it's already happening in terms of your dal and pulses. These days, dals are all 200 rupees and above per kilo. So people are avoiding. You eat an idli in the restaurant, you find there's no urad dal in it. There's only rice in your idli. And it's no longer as fluffy and tasty as it used to be. So the thing is, we have to look at an alternative way, and we also got to look at sustaining ourselves by ourselves. The future actually lies in urban farming, urbanization, urban farming. Now, if you take a building like the one you are right now in and look at the rooftop, you got thousands and thousands of square feet of rooftop space. In this technology that I evangelize, every non-arable land is arable land in this technology because you don't use soil at all. So you can imagine millions and millions of square feet of urban rooftop space is actually capable of producing so much of vegetables and herbs every single day. In my simple hydroponics technology, it doesn't call for anything that is expensive. Now that we're talking about the environment and the world and things like that, even your Coca-Cola bottles are actually candidates as containers to grow plants at home. All you need is some good sunlight and some good quality of water to be able to grow plants. It does not matter really whether you're going to go, obviously you cannot do large square feet at home. Not everybody has the privilege to do that because of whatever reasons. But the thing is, you could still grow something for yourself without using pesticides. One of the most dangerous things today we don't realize is pesticide. We are eating so much of pesticides, we are paying so much of money to buy poisonous vegetables and we're eating them. So at some stage we got to ask ourselves, is it possible for me to grow some palak at home? Can I grow some methi at home? Can I grow something leafy, anything it could be, but can I grow at home? And I know the IT industry. Most people when I talk to and I train, 90% of my students are from the IT industry. Because they come and tell, they really share their feelings with me, and they say, CV, it's sometimes very stressful in the IT industry. I said, sometimes? How many years have you been? 20. I said, you're still alive. So they just come because and I ask them, why are you here for my workshop? And they say, you know what, we want to do something with nature. We want to do something different, which takes our mind away, which reduces our stress levels. And it's the truth. When you work with plants, you'll find yourself more peaceful, more patient. I know myself, I was one of the most short-tempered persons you could ever find on this earth. In the last 16 years that I've been working with plants, I really don't know where my short temper went, to be honest. It's just gone. It's not there anymore because you can't fight with a plant and say, grow fast. Yeah. So I learned patience through plants, and it really helps bring down your blood pressure and your diabetes and so many different things. So it's very interesting as a science to do hydroponics or soilless cultivation. When we say hydroponics, we actually think hydroponics means, we know that hydroponics means it grows in water. But hydroponics is actually part of a larger science called soilless cultivation. We can also use inert media, sterile media like sand, river sand, sawdust, rice husk, or volcanic rock, or any inert media that does not have microbiological contamination, has some capability to hold water, hold some air within, because you need air and water at the root zone. And once you have that, you can grow literally any plant that you want. You can grow tubers, you can grow shoot vegetables, you can grow just leafy vegetables if you just want to do leafy vegetables for yourself, you can do any plant in hydroponics. What really stops us from growing is you can't grow trees because you can't have such big containers. If you had one, you could even grow mangoes in a large container, a tree. So today, when we talk of urbanization, and then we become so materialistic that we know the world as such, it's such a consumerist world. We're consuming, but we're not giving back. At some stage, we got to give back, and that's of course what you're doing with the legacy of good. I call it the baton of good, which you pass on. So we need to do something, not only for ourselves, by doing something for ourselves and doing for others. And I think every human has a responsibility towards not only nature, but between ourselves. We're so cut away today. We have mobiles, but we never call our mother and father, but we have time for everything else. But the mobile's busy. Don't ask why. Okay. So, in the face of this urbanization, we all can actually grow plants at home, on a windowsill, in a balcony, or on a rooftop and other places. It's also a very good candidate for bringing up poor people, destitute women, and poor children who have no parents. I've done my first project in October 2008 was in an orphanage near Henur Banaswadi Road, a school called the Sandra Ricketts Public School. That school had 20 orphan children. They were aged between 5 to 15, and they were from different parts of India, and that orphanage was actually part of a Christian school, which was actually a very poor Christian school funded by an Irish lady. So my deal with them was, see, this is the first time I'm going to be starting workshops in India and teaching people how to do this, but I had no land with myself, so I said, you have some extra land there, I'm going to build a garden for you. In the process, you give me the land, and I train your students, and I train 5 teachers. So these 20 kids were, 5 teachers were allotted different number of kids, and we built a 400 square feet garden. I'll show you pictures on my slide. And you will not believe it, the great news is, in a 10 by 10 or 100 square feet area, you can actually produce 1 kilogram of assorted vegetables every day. And I'm not joking. In 100 square feet, you can grow 1 kilogram of vegetables. And don't you think 1 kilogram of vegetable is enough for a small family of husband, wife, and 2 kids? I'm sure. Where do we actually consume more than 1 kilo of vegetables? So when we did this, we kept track of what we were harvesting from that little garden. By the end of 6 months, when we did the average, what we had actually harvested, it stood at 4.16 kilograms every single day. And the kids were so smart, they were selling all the lettuce, and they learned how to grow the leafy vegetables. They were selling behind my back. They were selling lettuce to the South Korean Christian missionaries, because they love their lettuce, for 400 rupees a kilo. But I felt good for them, poor things. Anyway, so the good thing about hydroponics is that the barrier to entry is actually not so high, especially when you're trying to do it at home. You can use all kinds of old paint drums. You can use old Coca-Cola bottles. You can use any container that did not contain any toxic material. You understand? So you can use all kinds of recyclable material to grow plants. So I'm going to show you a small few slides and things like that. Excuse me? Yeah. Okay. So once again, thank you for allowing me to give you a small presentation on soilless cultivation. I'm happy that I could take time off and come all the way to from Dharwad to see you all. Next slide, please. So basically, the Pet Burrow project, Pet Burrow means, this is a name I was looking for in 2006 before I came to India. And I said, what should I name my project? And one night, to be honest, in my dream, I got this name. And I actually got up and wrote down the name and went to sleep. And I was so happy that I found a wonderful name for this project. Basically, it means fill your stomach. So the idea was to teach people how to grow vegetables at home for their own use, and how they can sustain themselves and improve their health, and they can, be out of malnutrition. Almost 75% of Indians, it's a fact, we are malnourished. Although we all look very smiling and happy and everything, I can tell you we are mostly malnourished, because there's nothing in our vegetables that we eat. In fact, there is what you don't want, heavy metals. Okay, so they say that India's hunger means rate of hunger, or number of people, is about 200 million people actually go without one proper square meal a day. It's just because we get 3 meals a day, we think that everybody is getting 3 meals, good meals a day. It's not the truth. There are still parts of India, and we're as bad as sub-Saharan Africa or worse. So what happened was, when I did this trainings, I had one gentleman who came from Bandhavgarh National Park from Madhya Pradesh, and he was a naturalist working for the Tata Group's jungle cottages. So I trained him, and he went back and he trained tribals in the jungle how to make lettuce and different kinds of vegetables. And 6 months later, he sends me pictures and says, these tribals are making money now selling leafy vegetables using your technique. So they got a livelihood out of it. Yeah. So like I said, the reality is that the soils are depleted. There's nothing in the soils today. Most of the soils are as good as useless. There is a great problem of water, and the most interesting thing about this technology is that you just need about 20% of that, the amount of water that you use in conventional cropping. Just 20%. That means you save almost 80% of the water, because we believe in this science that plants can only be given water what it needs. We have this habit. How many of you have a garden or a pot at home? A small pot? Yeah? Do you water them every day? How often do you make them overflow? You know, sometimes we Indians are very sentimental people. We tend to think that, oh, my plant, it needs more water. We make the pot overflow and we say, baby, you know, I didn't water you last week, so this is Sunday and I'm at home. But you know what? Plants don't like a lot of water. It's like us. You can drink 1 glass of water, you can drink 2 glasses, but after that, if you drink the 3rd or 4th glass, you feel sick. So that's what we do. We kill our plants with love. So in our technology of hydroponics, what we say, water your plants many number of times, but less quantity each time. It's like the doctors tell us. You know, when you go to a dietitian or a doctor and you're fat, the doctor says, look, you feel sick because you eat 1.5 biryanis at the same time. Why don't you snack little whole day, but small quantities, right? The same thing we do with plants. And the most beautiful thing about growing plants, ladies and gentlemen, is you don't have to be an agricultural scientist or a person. I'm not from that background myself. It's just that you have to look at a plant the way you would look at yourself. If you see a plant with the leaves like that, that means the plant does not have enough water. So what do? You give water to the plant and then he says, okay, and all the leaves are up. So water is a very important component in hydroponics. I mean, when you go deeper, I can tell you more about it later. But otherwise, the quality of the water has to be good. There should be no microbiological contamination. And then, as we know, when you look at the farming industry, the labor is so difficult to get today. You don't get labor. Here, we need less amount of people to work on a farm. Actually, in commercial farming, we say we run plant factories where plants grow together. They all give same yield, the same quality. And it's just amazing when you see how plants grow in this particular technology. Then there are so many other problems like global warming, climate change, and then of course India is very proud to say that it uses the highest amount of pesticides in the world. We use 100,000 tons of pesticide per annum. No country can beat us on that front. And that's why you see today there is a train that goes to Ludhiana. Who all are from Punjab? Sardarji? You ask him. There are trains that run there's a cancer train that runs to Ludhiana every day, carrying 75% of the passengers are cancer patients. You know why? Because of the indiscriminate and mindless, godless use of pesticides. So in this technology, you can try by using natural methods, organic pesticides like chili spray, garlic spray, turmeric spray and things like that, you can actually prevent pest and disease even before they come. So the good news is we can do away with the use of chemical pesticides. Then from the government side, we all know it's unfortunate that we don't get that kind of help, especially farmers. And pest and disease control, either it's not affordable to farmers, or if it is affordable, what do the farmers do? For one crop, which is 35 days leafy vegetable crop, the farmer goes and sprays 5 times. That means every 7 days, he sprays once pesticide so that he can go home, relax. He doesn't have to worry. There will be no pest attack. Normally, you would maximum spray once in that 35 days. But what do our farmers do? I actually visit farmers. I stopped eating cauliflower and cabbage quite long ago, more than 15 years now. You know why? Because if you actually go and see a cauliflower and a cabbage farmer anywhere in India, he dips it into pesticides before he sends it to the market. And you all enjoy your gobi Manchurian so much. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to put fear into you. I'm just trying to say that we have hope that we can grow something at home in a very reasonable method. So the solution is simplified hydroponics. And the beauty of simple hydroponics is that because we use inert material and safe media without any microbiological contamination, So there is no soil-borne diseases. We start our plants right from the day one in good health. And till the time we harvest, our plants are absolutely healthy. So whatever nutrition we give to the plant is something that we control. There is no heavy metals. Do you know the coriander that you eat has so much of lead in it? Do you realize it? Most of the leafy vegetables grow best where there is dirty water, drainage water. Have you noticed? That's where they grow best. So ergonomics, the most beautiful thing about this technology is because you don't need to use soil. You can actually, even if you're an old person and you can't bend your knees and you've got problems, you can actually have a platform at this level where you don't have to bend. You grow your plants at this level, do your harvesting, do your seeding, everything is easy. So any person, even a person on a wheelchair, can actually practice this. No weedicides. There are no weeds to pull out. Have you seen people pulling weeds out, the farmers? Who all are from agricultural families, from the background of agriculture? You might have seen your grandparents and others when they did farming, pulling weeds out. There's no weeds here at all. And you can use whatever is locally available, like river sand or sawdust or any of these things can be used for growing plants, as long as they're sterile. You can produce different kinds of vegetables, either root vegetables or shoot vegetables, no problem. In a limited space, even in this one tile space, I can grow something, which means you can start anywhere. The nutrient can be recycled. Now look at this interesting thing. The nutrient which flows out of a particular trough after it's drained out can be collected in a small little bottle and poured back. That means you're not wasting a single drop of water. That's how we save water in this particular method. There's no groundwater pollution. Pest, disease, weed control is all in our hands. No chemical pesticides need to be used, provided we use preventative methods to keep the pest and disease away. It's not difficult to learn. If a torpedo officer could learn it, I'm sure IT people are more brilliant than me, they would learn. Okay. Use of recycled materials, again, you can build the system yourself. Also, communities can come together, especially people who live in closed communities. Nowadays, you have these fenced out communities, right? People can all have, on the rooftops, grow something, barter between themselves. And it's such fun. Today, we all have everything in life, but we don't have the social contact. We don't even know who our neighbor is. We become like Americans and the Westerners. In Australia, even 8 years back, when I came back, I did not know who my neighbor to my right was. And the producers of high biological and dietary value. You will not believe, I did a project for Swasti, an NGO in Bangalore, in 2011. We did French beans as a test. We took it to the laboratory to get it tested for nutritive value. And they tested it against the National Institute of Nutrition Standards, Hyderabad. And on 13 different parameters, we beat every single standard by almost 1.5 to 2 times. So you can imagine. Which means you can eat less quantity and still get more nutritive value. So you can remain trim and fresh. Good. Next, please. So simple hydroponics has been done in so many countries all over the world, in Latin America and in Central America. I happen to have my mentor who helped me set it up in India by the name of Miss Peggy Bradley. She's from the United States. And she's worked in all these countries and she helped me to set up in India in 2008. So in Mexico, for example, there are more than 1 million community hydroponic soilless gardens where poor people actually come, work there, they take the vegetables home for their use, and whatever is excess, they make a livelihood out of it. And this is something we can definitely do in India as well. Excuse me. So, like I said, a 200 square feet area, a garden, if you have one at home, you can actually produce about 2 kilograms of vegetables every day. All kinds of vegetables, but of course, assorted vegetables. And if you're looking at income, you can actually make about 250 rupees income every day from a rooftop of 400 square feet. I have a young boy who's, 2 boys who are from HSR layout in Bangalore. These guys, they have actually started doing 200, 250 square feet on different people's rooftops. What they're doing is they're actually franchising out or leasing out people's rooftops, and they've come up with a model now where a 400 square feet area, if it's leased, the owner can earn almost 12,000 rupees just from by giving the rooftop to them. It's not, I'm not joking. And today he was with me in the morning and I said, are you joking or is it reality? He said, sir, this is what I've done and this is where I made my sales, and he showed me his receipts. I said, okay, fine, good. Imagine getting money from an empty roof. Otherwise it's just there, right? Next please. Now you can see this. This is everything here. Oh, okay. This is only pictures. Here, whatever you see is all excess wood, the old wood and stuff which will lying around in home. And you have these pallets, shipping pallets and things like that which we just throw away. We can actually make this kind of structures and work ergonomically, keeping it at the right height. And this is what we grew in the orphanage, the first project that we did. You can see this is just about 400 square feet with a simple shade net and stuff like that. This is in Central America. Look how they are using open spaces like this, growing something or the other at home. So there's no wasting of any piece of land. This is a community garden where poor people have been brought together in clusters. They're working, and every day whatever they harvest, they take home. Whatever is excess, they sell and buy things for their homes. Next, please. This is here in Bangalore. I'd done this project at JP Nagar. A simple rooftop garden for the Environmental Management and Policy Research Institute. Look at this. This is a wall, an old cement bag. Tomatoes being grown with that. So you can see without the use of soil how much you can make use of spaces. Next, please. Okay, this is passive solar heating. And the funniest and the best part about our technology is in simple hydroponics, you don't need 1 watt of electricity or 1 watt of fossil energy. Just remember that. You don't need. Here, this is a cold area. It's very cold. You just hang Coca-Cola bottles with sand in it. And in the daytime, it absorbs heat. In the nighttime, it gives out heat. So the plants don't freeze to death. So this is, again, there's no fossil energy for heating or cooling the greenhouse. So you can see how it's done in different parts of the world. That's vertical farming, using old cans and stuff and hung up, and that way so you increase the number of plants that you can grow per square area. Discarded shipping pellets, they are all converted into those kind of trays. This is again discarded plastic containers. We throw these things away. When we build a house, we get around 50 of these plastic paint buckets. We just give it to the gujli wala and say, take it. And we get nothing for it. We can actually clean them and use them for growing plants. So these are, I've already said, what you can use as substrates. This is using cocoa peat, the coconut peat. So this is when we teach students how to hydrate them and things like that. Substrate beds. This is something called perlite. It's basically an ore which is imported into India, but it's used for growing plants. Grows very well. Tomatoes in pots. This is seedlings, how you make your own seedlings and then put them, transplant them. This is plants growing just in water media. It's just a thermocol sheet. You put plants with sponges like that, and the roots are floating in nutrient solution. And every day, because the nutrient solution needs a lot of oxygen, otherwise the plants can't take up their nutrition unless there's a lot of oxygen. And if the oxygen is less, you get a lot of microbiological contamination. So what you do, you just lift the thermocol every day and just with your clean hands, nicely bubble it up morning and evening and create enough bubbles so it has enough oxygen. So no power is required. So there's in different kinds of coir and perlite mix, growing lettuce. This is how it's recycled. You can see here the bottles. They all collect without losing a single drop of water. It's recycled back into the same system. Then you see you can make multi-rack systems, so you get vertical ability to grow vertically. This is how we train the children in the school. And they were also excited and they learned so well. And the good news is you don't have to worry. Anybody who's never been in agriculture can learn this faster than the people who've been in agriculture. Because when you start like a small kindergarten student, with a clean slate, so you have no beliefs, concepts, dogmas to stop you. Yeah, that's Peggy, my guru, who came to India and taught us how to help me to set up the simplified hydroponics training program. So this we had a Gurukul system sitting under a tree and teaching. These are all different pictures of people working. So this is the Sandro Ricketts Public School where the children used to every day weigh their vegetables. These are some of the projects that we've done. We did a project for the Satya Sai Hospital here in Whitefield in 2010. And in 2013, they sent us pictures saying that, because we convinced the doctors that you people are bringing patients back to health and then you give them all this pesticide-laden vegetables to eat. So how are they going to come back to health? So they tried it, the doctors, the resident doctors and nurses, for 2-3 years. And then when they were satisfied, they started giving it to the dietary department in their own hospital. A small little garden without the covering, you can start for a simple 10,000 rupees. A small garden with all your shooting and rooting vegetables. And the maintenance cost per annum is about 7,500 rupees maximum. And today I think this is not too big an amount for us to think about for spending. We can, as long as, because this is better than giving money to the doctor. So this thing can be done. So like I said, Dell's this thing of legacy of good, I call it as passing on the baton of good. That means it's like a relay you give from one generation to the other. So gentlemen, thank you so much. And ladies, I won't take more of your time. I know your Saturday, Sunday is very precious. You worked very hard, unlike me, who has no work. So I'm happy to have come here and spoken to you about it. I conduct these workshops once in a while. I did one when did I do that? 12th of April. 12th of April I did one. And I'm planning to revive my Bangalore workshops. I do workshops in Dharwad in North Karnataka. So if anyone's interested, you can always give me a shout. Okay? Thank you very much.